Hello, and welcome back to Coworking with Iris, where we talk about community, co-working, and this is episode 29. Today I'll be talking with Jenny Poon, the founder of COHOOTS Phoenix, the COHOOTS Foundation, and several other business enterprises, actually. Jenny is a serial entrepreneur who is making huge impact in her local community of Phoenix, Arizona. And Jenny, welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you. And congratulations. I know you just won Business Person of the Year.
Yeah. Thank you.
In your community. Now, is that a Phoenix Business Person of the Year or is that Arizona Business Person of the Year?
I think that's Phoenix. I'm not sure if there is in Arizona. I really don't know. I believe it's Phoenix. It's through the Phoenix Business Journal.
Huge honor, regardless.
Thank you.
Yes, and just amazing. So please, Jenny, start with telling us about your co-working story.
So I started COHOOTS. My background is in graphic design, and I used to work at the local paper here as an art director, and I left the paper in 2009 to start my own design agency. And like most entrepreneurs, I was just working from home and kind of going a little mad because I've always worked in a team environment, always had people to bounce ideas off of, always had someone else to talk to. I'm not naturally an extroverted person, but like I get a lot of my creative juices from talking to other people and being inspired by people around me. And so I was working from home, was at the point where I was on the verge of hiring another person, and I really needed to just get out of my house. And so I went around just looking for space. It was 2009. At the time, you know, we were in the middle of the recession and it was a hard period. But honestly, to launch a co-working space in that period was the best luck that we've ever had. So anyways, I went around looking for a space for my independent, small boutique graphic design agency and found a bunch of spaces, but they all required 5-year lease terms. They all required, you know, a big deposit up front. Started researching how much it would cost to then do all of the extra expenses that come with that, the electricity, the water bill, the gas bill, insurance for this entire space, et cetera. And it just became this huge, almost unsurmountable cost and incredibly risky for someone that's a small business owner like me. And so I went and I thought about, hey, what if, you know, I have a few friends that are kind of in the same position. What if we came together and just shared a space? And so the idea originally was just a shared space. I had no idea that co-working existed at that point. And so I was like, oh, this is a brilliant idea. It's just going to be a shared workspace, and we'll be able to carry the risk between all of us. And I just thought I was a brilliant mastermind of all this. And then I did a little research and found out there's this whole movement. Met you, Iris, and Jerome, and a bunch of other people that had been doing this for years already. But it was honestly the first that I'd ever heard of it in Phoenix. And Phoenix and Arizona oftentimes are a few years behind other major cities. But the good thing to that is we're able to kind of learn from other people who have done it and pick up a lot of the knowledge and wisdom from other people. And so that's kind of what I did. You know, I met with you, Iris, I met with Jerome, I met with a whole group of people who had been running co-working spaces for a while, and learned a lot from you guys about how to build things, and then also absorbed a lot from our local community. And so the first member that joined our space was a good friend of mine that I just randomly called. I didn't know him at the time, and I called him up and I said, I have this plan. I have these ideas. I think this is going to work. I penned it out. Like, we need 5 different people, and then we can sustain this space. And he was referred to me from another friend who said that he had been talking about something similar before. And it was a perfect match. He had the community of people that were interested in this, but didn't know how to run the business side of it, and didn't have a space. And he had already been going to these little meetups at coffee shops. And so we combined kind of our forces and our superpowers. And he wasn't ready to really jump on and be a co-founder, but wanted to just support it at a community level. And so with 2 weeks notice, I just put money down on the space on a month-to-month lease and said, let's do this. And we threw a big party expecting, you know, I think I sent it out to 50 people, and he sent it out to 50 people, but then those people ended up sending it to their 50 people, and we were expecting, 50 people to show up, and all of a sudden 350 people were there, 2 weeks notice in our first event. And I don't think anybody knew what the hell was going on. I don't think we even explained it very well. It was just, Phoenix was such a different town then. Whenever there was just a random event, everybody wanted to go out because there was so few of those happening at that time. And so our goal was to get one new member every single month for the first year. And by the end of the first year, we would be profitable. And so we got our first 3 members within our first 2 months, and then 6 members in 3 months. And so we had already hit our goals. And then somebody came in, and originally I just thought, I want this space to be a creative space. Like for my agency, I want to partner with people who I could work with. We could refer work to each other. We can help each other. It would be an agency of agencies, right? Like we run our own little businesses, but we can collaborate. So I brought in a content person, a web developer, a PR company, and a photographer, and then my design agency. And it was a perfect little combination of like the creative team. Then all of a sudden, this guy walks in and he says, I'm a real estate investor. Would I be a good fit in this space? I don't like working from home, and I really value being around creative people, but I'm not really a creative type. And our tagline at the time was co-working for creatives. Mm-hmm. And then like, sure, let's see how this works. And all of a sudden he was giving us advice on how to manage our books. He was talking about, okay, if we wanted to scale, this is how we do it. He brought this other aspect of running a business that none of these creative people knew. Mm-hmm. And so it was such a powerful thing, bringing in this completely different industry into this creative group. And that's when we decided, like, let's really blow this up. Let's open it up. We needed more people anyways because we had this huge space. And so we opened it to the general public. And now it's just become this hodgepodge of like amazing, brilliant people who have the same culture of running a business, but come from different industries. And so you'll see, like we all know what co-working is, but you'll see these different businesses working with each other. We count the different collaborations on a monthly basis, and there's easily like 20, 25 different companies colliding with all these other different companies, building businesses together. Some businesses have even shut down their own business to then merge or to create a new partnership with other businesses that were in the space because they found the perfect partner. So it's been really cool, and that's kind of, we're 7 years in now, and I couldn't have ever imagined that we would be where we are now, because the beginning idea is totally different from where we are now. But it's been such a fun journey.
Wow. What a rich story. I just love it. It's like peeling back the layers of history and seeing how you were meant to be. How organically it just happened.
It's wild. I'm still in shock every time I go in there and I look, and I'm like, we now have 280 members. And the first year, I think we had 12. Like, we had our goals, so we had 12. But I just think back and I look at the pictures of when we first started, and it's this giant, I would say, 3,000 square foot space with 4 tables in it. So it's been wild. It's definitely been a wild, wild journey, and we're not done yet.
Yeah. And you mentioned, just going back to one of your first statements, that Phoenix and Arizona tend to be a little bit slow in the uptake, maybe a couple of years behind the times. And yet, as I watch you from a state once removed, it seems to me like Phoenix is leading the charge in a lot of entrepreneurial fronts and a lot of grassroots entrepreneurial fronts. And it seems like you are there leading that charge.
Great. My brainwashing is working.
From my biased opinion.
It really is. I think we've done a lot in the past 7 years. When I first moved to Phoenix, that was in 2006. Phoenix was known as a ghost town where people came to work, and then after 6, everybody would leave and there'd be no businesses open. Now our downtown is thriving. There's so much development happening, which is a good and bad thing. But it's such a different city. And I do think that a big part of it is this emphasis on entrepreneurship. Our government gets it. It did start with a groundswell. There's a huge community now that's cheering for it. Whereas back 6 years ago, it was known as the town that everybody's leaving, and that there's no jobs and that there's no talent here. And I do think it's the opposite. There's so many companies that are moving here now. The cost of living is so affordable. The community is so giving and so generous and so supportive. And I know that that's partly because we've been a fighting town for such a long time, that spirit is still in us, that collaborative spirit. When there's like not enough people, you know that those 4 people that are running beside you are there and they're lifers.
Right.
And I think those people are still there fighting, and that spirit has trickled down into a lot of the new people. I think the challenge with any growing city and any growing population in the innovation space is, how do you retain that? How do you not let that ego take over and make it seem like Phoenicians are hot shit? And how do we make sure that we're still grounded, and that these companies that were here from the beginning fighting and investing in our local economy and diligent about curating this, just like we're diligent about curating our space, diligent about curating what our city looks like, making sure that those people still are empowered and supported, and that the new people that come understand that fabric that we're building is all based on, continuing the culture that we have of being generous and collaborative, and not let it be taken over by chains. Like, there are some really great things that we have here in Phoenix. The largest, like the strongest and largest local small business association, Local First Arizona. I think we finally have all the pieces in place, right? Like, we have the density and the people that believe in preserving the community and making sure that this innovation space is successful. And then people outside of that circle, like your planners, your business development districts, business improvement districts, your local government, and even your state government is starting to look at that stuff, right? I think we have all the pieces in place to keep moving forward and not backtrack, but we have to be diligent about making sure that we don't get usurped by any crazy ideas about being all McDonald's and Starbucks in every corner.
Yes, agreed. Keep it local as much as possible.
Right.
So I think one of the ways I see you also leading the movement, being sort of a forefront in the movement of co-working and entrepreneurship for small business, for small people, is is your recent opening of your new COHOOTS location. And in order to open it and in order to raise the money, you held a crowdfunding campaign.
We did.
Yeah, I mean, some co-working spaces have done that. There's not that many. You have successfully done so. You literally launched a crowdfunding campaign that hit the world. From all over the world, not just locally. How did it go? How did that feel?
It was amazing. And I have to give props to Odin, my husband, for running that campaign, because I could not have done that alone. And I think there are a few reasons why it was incredibly successful. We have amazing support, like I said, on the ground here. Our community is very far reaching, but I think the biggest thing is that there was already a precedent for what we were doing, and we'd been running and pushing towards this. We've been telling our story to everybody who would listen. Like, every single time we go out, it's all about education, and that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing because there's no tangible result to that that's immediate, right? Like, you're telling your story and it's just awareness. It's just like putting out a newspaper ad. You have no idea who's listening, and you have no idea what the result is going to be. You just hope that someone is listening and somebody is going to take action. And so we've rallied the troops, and we were telling our story for the past 6 years, and they've seen us move every 2 years. They've seen us grow out of our space and have to move, one, for the reason of, we get pushed out of the area. We can't afford the area anymore. And two, because, like landlord, we can't manage and continue to work under a specific landlord. The first time it was a landlord, the second time it was we can't afford the area anymore. And so they've seen the story. And because we have such a proud local movement, that idea of being pushed out of a neighborhood that you helped build creates this like surge of fiery hell for a lot of our community members that like, we're not going to let this happen again, right? And when I when I talk to community people, one thing that one of our great community leaders told me was there's nothing stronger than people rallying against a common enemy. And so when you are able to explain what that common enemy is or what that big goal is and make it very tangible to people, they'll rally, right? And that's community building. And so that's what we did really, is we were able to tell our story really well, like the reason we were going into the space. And frankly, Udine and I have been running Cahoots like as our passion project. I still run my design agency. That's where I get funded. And we've been running this passion project for the past 7 years and giving ourselves like time and time and again to this. And this was a one time, and we've never asked for money from anybody, to run this thing. We've never done that before. And so one, it was incredibly scary to launch this crowdfund campaign because we've never done this. But two, it was really going to either validate what we were doing or validate that we had no community. Yeah. And so that was really scary because we've never had to ask that question before. We just kind of assumed it's there. And when you're running something, you just think, you worry that you're in your little bubble and that what you see only sees like the beautiful child and the beautiful creature that you're building, right? And every once in a while you think, this little baby that I have, is it really beautiful or is it kind of ugly, right? And your fear is that everyone thinks you have an ugly baby, but you only see the beautiful baby. So this crowdfund campaign was really like proving either that we have this beautiful thing or that we were totally delusional. And so that night before it launched, and we were very fortunate too. We had a friend that had run a lot of crowdfund campaigns, and he gave us a lot of amazing advice. He had in the past run crowdfund campaigns for bands, which have huge audiences. And so he gave us some advice, never obviously done something for co-working, but he told us like, here's a timeline for what you need to do. Here's how you should structure it, and gave us like that guidance that we needed. And so that night when we went to launch the campaign, I remember us like sitting there just about to like hit the go button and thinking, I don't know, like, is this really gonna work? And we hit the go and kind of like covered our eyes and just waited. And it was midnight, and like a couple of minutes into it, we got like a $2,000 donation.
Oh.
And that was when we were like, oh my God. So that totally kickstarted this whole like growth. And it was scary. It was scary for a while too, because and our friend told us this, you'll have this huge surge in the beginning and then it'll go dead for a little bit. And then at the end is when you're going to have to push really hard. And I was super fortunate because on the very day that our crowdfund campaign ended, I was asked to go speak on this panel with the president of GE, our governor, and our senator. And we were, I think, $5,000 short of hitting our goal. And so I got up there and I was like, first of all, what am I doing on this panel? Because I am not a Republican. And two, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. And so I plugged our campaign. And when I got off our panel, my phone blew up and all of a sudden, like, we had hit our goal. So it was such a great story. And we had so many challenges. And I think what really, really helped us was really being authentic and honest with all of the challenges that we've had. Like, it's so easy as a small business and as an entrepreneur to like puff up and be like, I have all my shit together. But we decided to buy this building and we hit so many challenges in purchasing this building. We were approved for a loan that fell through. Our big partner that we had worked with last year just like totally fell off, and that breakup was horrible.
Mm.
just like a bad partnership, and just lots of different things that got in the way and that challenged whether we should continue this or not. And I think getting that crowdfund to be successful took everything. Like, we had our entire team tweeting about it every single day. We put it in our newsletters. It was in our email signatures. It was everywhere that we could think of. We reached out to all the PR companies. We asked that every time we hit a goal, we would like do something crazy. You know, like, it was $50,000, but it was $50,000 hard worked, hard energy, you know, totally worth it, but incredibly hard, hard earned, you know. But it got us what we needed. You know, when our loan fell through, that crowdfund was the money that we needed to bridge the gap and allow us to get into the building. And I think it was 300 some people came forward and helped contribute to that campaign. So, and across the world, like you said, our co-working community, our global co-working community came forward and shared it. And, you know, tons of people contributed. So you as well. So thank you.
A small amount. I was very poor.
But that is what is heart wrenching. Like, we had a woman Google us, and she just quit her job to launch her new company. She doesn't know how to code, and she was learning to code and to launch this new company. And she walks into Cahoots and she heard about our crowdfund campaign, and she's like, I donated $15. It's not much, but I'm not making any money right now. And I actually closed out my 401k to start this company. And I'm like, that means so much. And so now it just continues to drive what we do, right? Like, these 350 people that contributed to this campaign is what continues to drive us in doing the work that we do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Oh my gosh, Jenny, I could just talk to you forever. I really had originally wanted to do a story just on crowdfunding with you, and perhaps we'll do that sometime. I think that's valuable for people who want to open community-based spaces. And it's a vision I've had for a really long time. Wouldn't it be so cool if people could crowdfund co-working spaces? And to see it happen now is just wonderful. I want to touch on the other work that you're doing, because you've got so many irons in the fire. It's amazing. So you also have this organization, the COHOOTS Foundation. So tell us about the COHOOTS Foundation. What was the impetus for starting it, and what's your overall mission?
The COHOOTS Foundation was spurred out of Cahoots, obviously, but Cahoots is a membership-based co-working space. It's really meant for companies and small businesses that are looking to scale, right? Like, we have a membership that includes this ability to bring on an intern and have them work with you for free, and we'll help you, train them. We'll help you. We'll be a soundboard for as you become a manager, which is always such a hard transition. But for those people that aren't quite there yet, for those people who are often underrepresented in entrepreneurship and who don't have the same opportunities that a lot of like middle class people do, there's nothing out there to support them. So I'm talking about women and minorities, and for youth in low to moderate income areas. They have a lot more barriers than your typical, middle class kid who goes to great public school or even goes to private school and ends up going to college, right? There's a lot of kids out there that think they don't have a chance to go to college. Or there's a lot of women and minorities that are immigrants that, don't even know how to structure their business and don't know where to turn for that, and are already trying to work in a system that is very male dominated. And so there's just more hurdles for some of these people, and we want to make sure that all of these people get a fair shot of creating a business, of chasing their dream and creating the opportunities that everyone else gets. And so the foundation kind of focuses on that, is expanding entrepreneurship to these underrepresented groups that often aren't in the innovation space. And we need that, right? Like it's not just like it's not just the doing good part of co-working. It makes really great business sense, because just like we've seen in our co-working space, when you get that diverse thought into your community, it creates better businesses. Creatives, like, we wouldn't have been better better off if we would not have been better off if that that real estate broker didn't enter our space, or that real estate investor didn't enter our space, because we wouldn't have been a better business person. We wouldn't know the financials. We wouldn't like understand how to do these things better. And so, and it's proven, right? More women in leadership creates better businesses. They make more money. The companies make more money. They're more destined for success. And so the more we can engage people into that sector, into innovation, into the innovation space, into the innovation ecosystem, the better off all of our companies will be. Mm-hmm. And so that's the mission, right? Like to bring more women and minorities and youth and low to moderate income communities into the innovation space. So we host a lot of educational events. And we do this by connecting our talent pool to these different groups, right? We leverage our talent pool because our talent pool wants to support this, and they believe in this just like we believe in it. And so we host things like Youth Startup Weekend, which is Startup Weekend for Youth, which is one of the first cities to host that. It's just like Startup Weekend held by Techstars. It's in partnership with Techstars. It's just like that, except for youth ages 12 to 18. And then we get our pool of entrepreneurs to help support that, be mentors. And the last 2 times we held it, we had more mentors than we did students, which meant like it was a 1-to-2 ratio, right? Like 1 student to 2 mentors, which is amazing to see how many of these people really want to see our youth succeed. And it makes sense, right? Like these are the kids that are going to be working for you someday, or these are the kids that are going to be developing the coolest technology that are going to improve your lives in the future. So we want to be a state and a city that supports that. And as well as we have a women's leadership program, and then we're looking to launch a health tech specific innovation space that will really focus on diversity, inclusion, and bringing in women and minorities, and really making sure that they're successful in a very underrepresented industry of health tech. So those are the areas, and all of that kind of spills down into just making sure that Phoenix becomes the top city for innovation, and that we're the most inclusive. And it makes sense. We're right on the border. We have so much diversity happening here, and we want to make sure that we're supportive of this, even though, from the top down, legislation doesn't look that way as a state. Sometimes I feel like outside of Arizona, we might look kind of silly because of legislation that passes. But I think at the ground level, from the citywide perspective, that's not happening. And we're fighting hard to make sure that that rhetoric of Arizona being backwards or whatever isn't continuing, because it's truly not here at a city level. And it's not the way that people think here, or not what people think here.
That's awesome. Wow. Well, so we're almost out of time.
I'm sorry. I took up so much time.
This is amazing. So a question that I have about the foundation, really quick, I have a couple that I'd love to get through today. How do people, how can they afford to take your training programs? Is it subsidized for everybody? Is there an application process? How does that work?
So through COOHOOTS, all of the education is free. We do lunch and learns every single day. So it's all of the programming, all of the educational program is run through the foundation. So all of the education that we run is free. We host educational programming every week on Wednesday over lunch. We have a lot of that sponsored. We also host evening events. We host creative mornings. We host just a ton of different events. You can find them all on our website. Those are all free. The programming that we run, so the Youth Startup Weekend, there's a fee to that, but we have scholarships which are sponsored by organizations, and members of our space also sponsor. So there's opportunities to sponsor a youth to go through the program, or to sponsor a woman to go through the leadership program. And you can sponsor it individually, you can sponsor it as a corporation, you can sponsor it as a small business, right? It's you giving back, and it's all tax deductible because it's through our nonprofit. And so kids who want to apply can apply for the scholarship, and all they have to do is email or apply online. The health tech innovation space that we're going to be launching, there'll be an application for that too. So if you are a woman or a minority or in a low to moderate income community, you can apply to be a part of the innovation space, and you'll get either a discounted rate or through subsidy, through government subsidy, or scholarship through sponsorship. And that'll be online. It's not launched yet, and we're still actually looking for a space for that. But that'll be how that will be funded. And then the offset is if you don't qualify into those groups, then there's a normal fee for it. So it's really to create that equity for those people that really need that step up and that equal opportunities.
Yeah, wonderful. And what tips do you have for other people who might be looking to start a nonprofit or a foundation, this type of a similar type of program out of the working space?
Yeah, I think you can easily email me or Cahoots in general. It's hello@Cahoots or Jenny at Cahoots, COHOOTS. It was my first time creating a nonprofit, so I will not say that I'm an expert by any means, but I also think that nonprofits need a little shakeup. They need a little innovation in their blood too. So what we've done is we started with finding a fiscal sponsor to start, and then we applied for our 501c3. So if you get a fiscal sponsor, you're able to operate as a nonprofit for a short period of time, usually, to really like test out if this is what you want to do. There's pros and cons to both, I will say. The pro is I was told, don't create a nonprofit unless you're going to really fundraise, because there's no point in having that additional paperwork, the additional tax filing, the additional expenses of all of that. There's no point in that unless you have enough bandwidth to fundraise, right? Write grants, to get sponsorship. And then also, I believe that you need to have a business model. So a nonprofit is just a vehicle to operate. And if that vehicle gives you more opportunities to create sustainable revenue, then you should go that route, right? And if creating a for-profit creates more revenue and more sustainability for you, you should go that route. So I think you have to really look at those different things. Do you have the bandwidth to really fundraise? We didn't have the bandwidth to do that. Even though all of the programming and all of the work that we were doing was community service, for the last 7 years, we didn't have the bandwidth. We didn't have somebody that could write grants. We didn't have somebody that could go out and ask for fundraising. We also didn't have the reputation to be able to do so at that point. And we were hyper-focused on creating a sustainable business model. And so we went for-profit route for the last 6 years and then launched the nonprofit to make sure that those other areas that really can't be sustained, like the customer is our women and youth and low to moderate income communities. They can't afford a membership. So what's the other revenue model that's going to make that work? And that's why it became a nonprofit, is because our customer is not the one that's going to be able to pay for this. Yeah. Whereas like running a normal co-working space, our customers can pay for it, and we just need to be able to tell the story so that they can see what they're paying for. So that's why we've done what we've done. That's not the only way, I will say. And I would also definitely recommend going a fiscal sponsorship route, which, like I said, it creates this entity that you run your dollars through, and they oversee a lot of the work that you do, and they make sure that you're following the nonprofit guidelines, and they handle your books, and they're pass through. That allows you to operate as a nonprofit, not worry about too much of the craziness of the bookkeeping side of running a nonprofit, but still allows you to fundraise for what you need.
And how does somebody find out where to find fiscal sponsors?
The best way is to go local. Like there's usually foundations and things like that. You can Google fiscal sponsor within your area. There's not that many, but there are some usually in every city. You can also ping us. We're working on developing, it's probably not going to happen in the next year, but you can get on a list so that we can notify you. We're working on expanding our nonprofit to work with other co-working spaces to be the nonprofit arm. So essentially to be a fiscal sponsor for some other co-working spaces. And then you can leverage the programming that we've set up for all of these for all of these things that we've done through our nonprofit. So we would basically create the system for you and allow you to leverage all of the things that we've done in the space of co-working for nonprofits.
Awesome. Jenny, last question today. What is your prediction for co-working in 2017?
For us specifically, or for the industry in general?
The movement itself, yes, the movement, the industry. Where do you see co-working going in 2017?
I think co-working is going to get more connected. We've been working towards that for a while now with Juicy and with all of these conferences and the alliances and things like that. We're going to see, I think in particular in Phoenix, we're going to see a lot of other co-working spaces open. And so I think you're going to see some niche industries pop up. So co-working specifically for real estate brokers, or co-working specifically for financial advisors and things like that. Because there's just so many, and I think we're going to have to figure out how to differentiate from each other. I also think there's more and more people becoming remote workers. There's more and more people starting things. There needs to be more spaces for that. I'm also excited to see the growth of co-working spaces that are a lot more community minded. There's definitely a differentiation right now between your I hate to say like cookie cutter co-working spaces, but your real estate play co-working spaces, which is just for the space. And then your spaces that are really built on community improvement and community development. So I'm excited to see what different communities do in that space. And I'm actually looking to not your big cities. I'm looking to your second level cities, like cities that are like Phoenix, right? That are going to attract those big city companies and start to pull people from New York and LA and Silicon Valley and emerge as like the best places for innovation and for technology and for entrepreneurs, right? And I also think specifically in Phoenix, we're going to see, actually maybe not specifically in Phoenix, I think all over, we're going to see a lot of powerful women, I think, rise to the top and lead a lot of these initiatives for community building and for co-working, specifically because of the election. But also I think this has been, if you look around, I don't know if it's like this in your city, but I look around and like I'm surrounded by women who are like fucking fireballs, right? And they'll do anything to make their dreams happen. There's no saying no to these women, and they'll keep bonding and banding together, and they'll be able to accomplish so much. And I get to see, and I'm not saying women are better than men by any means, but that combination of bringing a woman into a workspace and bringing women together into a leadership group creates so much potential and so much difference in thought that it's so cool to see these different companies come up with these different ideas, right? I don't have like a prime example. I wish I could just spit one off the top of my head, because we've kind of just wandered into an area that I wasn't expecting to talk about. But I think there's just such a powerful like community there. Look at Pantsuit Nation and how powerful that is. Just I think there's now a soapbox. There's now the ability to activate and mobilize this entire group of people in a way that wasn't there before. And so I think you'll see more women in co-working spaces, more women leading co-working spaces, and more women in entrepreneurship across all of our globe in the next year.
I love it.
Yeah.
2017, the
2017.
Connected community co-working spaces and the movement being led by women. I love it.
Yes.
Down. Jenny, thank you so much for talking to me today. What a pleasure it's been.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And good luck to you in 2017.
Thank you. You too.
Well, thank you for joining us again today. And for other episodes, you can go to coworkingwithiris.co, where you can also subscribe to the podcast. Keep doing the great work you're doing every day. Happy winter.